Let's talk about the importance of knowing who you are. Some call it your authentic self. Some call it the real self. Some call it a spiritual being having a human experience. Whatever it is, what is it that gets us down to our basic self, our true self? If you're not already aware, I rely a lot on what I learned in the 12-step program my first time around, which was from 1988 to 2001, 13 years. Then a situation occurred and I was not maintaining my spiritual condition on a daily basis, and it threw me for a loop. At a time I was not bound, I was not grounded. I was not grounded. I was not on good spiritual ground. I don't want people to mix up the AA program and meetings and sponsorship and doing those 12 steps. I don't want people to mix that up with the fact we're going to go back into the real world now, having overcome these addictions, right? And what helped me understand myself were those 12 steps. How you do it otherwise, I'm not sure. But I can tell you this. If you take that test, the 12 steps test, that's what I call it, take that course, the 12 steps. Google it. The 12 steps of the 12-step program. Look at all those steps and ask yourself, can I do this? Now, you might think, well, why would I want to listen to a program that was started by two alcoholics, right? Bill Wilson and Bob Smith. Well, Bob Smith wasn't just an alcoholic, he was a druggie. But the roots of AA, those 12 steps, they're rooted in religions, spiritual paths, spiritual ways, doctrines, tenets, and the medical society. It tells you this. If you don't believe me, Google foreword of the 12-step 12 tradition book. Foreword of the 12-step 12 tradition book. And it tells you in there that spiritual principles were codified into each of the steps. And then somewhere in the beginning of the big book, I'm pretty sure it's before Bill's story, it talks about spiritual paths and spiritual ways. I believe it even mentions Buddhists, approved of the 12 steps. There's a lot that go into those 12 steps. Besides healing drug addicts and alcoholics, okay? You could insert any addiction into that and come up with a plan to heal yourself. The first step is to know your life is unmanageable. Why? Why is your life unmanageable? Well, it comes down to two parts. Number one, whatever is your addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, pornography, what playing video games all day, eating too much, and I'm not talking about people with a legit disability eating or a legit learning disability. Although the stability from the 12 steps can help you handle daily life's ups and downs. But my expertise, so to speak, is within drugs and alcohol. And so drugs and alcohol make you into someone you're not. It's not something that the body was designed to process. And because of the substances, they cause us to think out of the norm, the human norm, or to act out of the norm. So when we're doing drugs or drunk, we do not act like our true selves. We are someone else. You've heard it, the Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde syndrome. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, whatever it is, you understand it. So, the process of getting those drugs or alcohol takes you away from family. You're obviously spending money on something you shouldn't, right? And then afterwards, you're not thinking and acting like your true self or a true human being. This makes your life unmanageable. How is it unmanageable? Well, you start to miss work. You start to dislike being nagged at for what you're doing. You start to hide things because you don't want to get caught. You start to tell lies. So your personality and your character takes on a different meaning. And if you were raised in a dysfunctional family like I was, and then you turn to alcohol and drugs or whatever it is you're doing, it won't take long for your life to be unmanageable. You are unable to manage what's going on in your life because of what you're addicted to. And you'll make excuses for it. Just like the alcoholic makes excuses, you'll make excuses for why you need to play video games all day. You'll make excuses for why you need to watch pornography all day. You'll make excuses because you're a negative person and you are always into this drama mode, being sarcastic and cynical about things. You'll make excuses for this behavior. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you're 20 years and older, you should have sowed your wild oats by now, and you should be in a mature mode. A mature mode. A mature person, to me, thinks before they speak, thinks before they act, doesn't believe what they're told or what they see on the surface. They don't believe it on the surface. A mature person will question certain things that they're unsure of. And if you undertake something, you join a group, you start doing something based on some kind of book, and you know there aren't good results doing this, you need to have the courage and say, well, maybe this isn't the right path for me. I don't know if you watched those videos I made. There's a short one. Which season do you like? Which season? Do you like summer? Do you like fall? Do you like winter? Do you like spring? Most people, a lot of people have a favorite season. Now, the average life expectancy of a man in the United States is around 75 years. The life expectancy of a woman in the United States is around 77 years. I'll be 66 this month. I may have 9 years left according to the statistics. I may have less, I may have more, I don't know. But when I think about my favorite seasons and put it into the perspective of life expectancy, if your favorite season is summer, just summer, can't wait for summer, you know it. We all do this for various seasons. Well, I used to. I don't anymore. I can't wait till it gets hotter. I can't wait till it snows. Whatever your favorite season is, let's say it's winter. If you live to be 77 years old, you will only have experienced 77 winters. Or if it's summer, 77 summers. Or if it's spring, 77 springs. Or if it's fall, 77 falls, autumns. That's all you experience when you have a favorite month. Now, how many times have I said you should investigate your ancestors, right? How many times have I said that? Where do I start, Johan? Well, go back as far as you can to a name you remember from your grandparents or great-grandparents, and start out by looking for the family crest of that name. That's how I started. I didn't take a DNA test and find out my ancestors were Danes, Vikings. I followed paper trails. There's that. There's census papers, right? Marriage certificates. You could go to your parents' marriage certificates and their parents' name will be on there. Death certificates have a lot of names, informations, where people came from. Ships that traveled from Europe to the United States, they have those logs, passenger logs. You can find out things from there. There's all ways to find out things about your ancestors, and this is why I say that, because my ancestors had 2 seasons. And I hope I get this right. Winter solstice starts November 1st. That goes to April. And then there's the summer solstice. I don't remember which date that's on. I did celebrate winter solstice one year. And I would like to get into that ritual again and keep it going every year. This is what I'm talking about. There's so much. But now, getting back to the point of these seasons, my ancestors had 2 seasons. 6 months summer, 6 months winter. And that's what I go by. They didn't have birthdays like 66 years old. They had 66 winters. So this year, I'll have lived 66 winters in a couple of weeks, right? So knowing a lot about my ancestors helped me separate from this world that we're in today. This, wow, people just got sucked into technology like that. I laugh when I go out and I forget my phone, like in the evening, to take my dog out for a walk. I say, hold up, Ace, it's 2024. I got to take my phone with me. You never know what might happen. What did we do 40 years ago without a phone? We went out. But we've been so groomed. And there's a lot of factors involved. But a lot of it has to do with corporations. I don't see anybody, it's hard to find anybody that goes out of their house without some kind of drink. Or they'll stop and buy some kind of expensive coffee or expensive drink at whatever, Dunkin' Donuts. We never did that. Like, we drank when we were thirsty. We didn't take a meal along either. I don't have to take a meal anywhere. If I'm going on a trip, all these major supermarkets have like salad bars and hot food bars. And if you can't afford that, they all have bakeries. You could get a roll, a quarter-pound of ham off the bone, and 3 slices of Swiss cheese. Make a sandwich and go on your way. So what I learned in those 12 steps from making all those lists was I learned a lot about myself. Why I did things the way I did. And even though I stopped the addictions, why I still had addictive behavior. I had an addictive personality. I still used the addiction language. I still responded to things like I was in my addiction. No way, I don't deserve this. Or let me tell you how to do that the right way. I don't agree with it. In a way, you get humbled. In a way, you get humbled through those steps, right? The humbling, the big humbling comes at step 4, when you have to look at yourself in that searching a fearless moral inventory. And how stupid you were. How inappropriate you behaved. Being under the influence. And even when you weren't under the influence, maybe you were staying off the crap for 2 or 3 days, you still had that mentality. You were still withdrawing from whatever it was you were addicted to. You still weren't your authentic self. The first step to any addiction is to get away from it. To get away from it. And you have to get away from it for at least 30 days. Abstinence. Abstinence from it. Abstinence. Whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's porn, whether it's video games, whether it's having a shitty attitude and wanting to get at people, whether you're a cocky person and you think you're a know-it-all, you got to get away from it for at least 30 days. When I went into the Marine Corps, the Army too, but when I went into the Marine Corps, they took all the clothes that we came in with, shaved our heads, gave us their clothes, and then we started this new routine, military training. And so the process of getting over an addiction, healing from an addiction, is almost like that when you use the 12 steps. You are stripped emotionally of who you were. You get to see through those steps why you did the things you did, why you acted the way you did, why you overreacted. And also the 4th step was a list of fears. You make a list of your fears, what you're afraid of. Yeah. Besides the list of people you have resentments against, right? You want to start something today? Make a list of people you have resentments against and why. Why do you have resentments against these people? Why are you angry with them? Even if it's 10, 20 years ago. Start there. Here's who I'm angry at. Here's why I'm angry at them. And here's what part of my life it affects. Go to the 4th step in the big book. But do that, because that's the important part. Here's the part of my life it affects. How many hours in a day do you sit there thinking about somebody you're angry with? And maybe what you're going to do to get even with them. Maybe you go to the other side and feel sorry for yourself. Self-pity. Oh, take that test, those 12 steps. Not everybody gets to 12. They think they do. They talk like they do. But you can tell by their personality. They got to step 5 and, looked at 6 and 7, which are about character defects and shortcomings. Never delved into that. Never did the amends lists, right? You want to talk about being humble. You want to get rid of some character defects you have? Make a list of people you have harmed in your whole life. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, financially. Make a list of all the people you've harmed in your life. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, even sexually. And become willing to make amends to them all. Try that. Take that course, the 12 steps. Try it. We'll see how tough you are. We'll see how tough you are. And so I sit here and I could say, I thoroughly went through those steps. I honestly, as honest as I could be, went through those steps. I made those lists. I made the list of amends. I also made a searching and fearless moral inventory. I made that list, who I had resentments against, why I had resentments against them, and how it affected me. I've done that. I made the list of amends, and my list was long. And I made each amends face to face if it was humanly possible. And if I couldn't make an amends for whatever reason, and there are reasons, you don't want to start more trouble. My sponsor, my first sponsor, let his soul rest in peace, had me do something else to make up for it. Kind of like karma coins. You could call them karma coins. Because that memory of doing something to somebody, if you can't make an amends to them, that memory is still there. And that first sponsor I had said, you are going to address it one way or the other. If you can't go to them to make an amends because it'll cause more trouble, I'm going to have you go out of your way and do something else. Out of your way being the key point. So when you're done with those steps, when you take that course and you've done them thoroughly and as honestly as you could, your personality has changed. Your character has changed. There are still some things left that may or may not have to do with addiction. They just may have to do with lack of learning, lack of being taught when you were young. But there's no excuse now. There is no excuse if you're over 20 that you're continually hurting, disappointing, frustrating, and annoying people because you're selfish and self-centered. Because you have a horrible personality. Because you have low self-esteem. Because you're not at peace with yourself. You see, the other thing I found out with those 12 steps are I learned about other people as well. You know how we used to think the whole world was against us, and that if this person wasn't that way and that person wasn't that way, this would have never happened? Like we blamed other people? Well, I learned about other people through those 12 steps. That they, like me, are spiritually sick. What does it mean to be spiritually sick, Johan? Well, I'm going to tell you this. Step 2 in that program is we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So what does sanity have to do with being spiritually sick? When you're spiritually sick, you don't make sane decisions. When you're spiritually sick, your behavior, your inappropriate behavior could border insanity, and your inappropriate behavior could go beyond sanity. You know, instant asshole, just add drugs or booze or whatever. Playing video games all day or whatever. You don't want to bother somebody that's addicted to porn. Have you tried that? Oh, forget it. Same thing with video games. Have you ever tried to interrupt somebody that was in intense stimulation from video games? Ain't happening. I'm like last of the dying breed because I did not grow up with the technology that everyone else did, let's say after the 90s, okay? Cell phones in the mid-90s became small enough that you could carry them, then technology and these other things. I was not raised that way. But I've had my internet addictions. Facebook was one of them. And I remember the last message I posted on Facebook, I think it was early 2017 before I deactivated it. I said something to the effect, you know what? I'm done spending 6, 8, 10 hours a day and coming back on and off on Facebook, and I want to get on with my life and do something with my life. I got a lot of thumbs down, and people are like, yeah, you'll be back again. I was never back again because I realized that addiction. Even just watching regular TV, let me tell you, when you watch regular TV, you get cast under a spell. Why? Because television shows, whatever you're watching, are no different than the internet, no different than Facebook, no different than video games, no different than porn, no different than eating all day, no different than thinking about how I could get even with somebody. All of that stuff affects your senses in a way that's not natural. In a way that's not natural. If you have the energy to sit there for 3 hours to think about how to get even with somebody that hurt your feelings, can't you use that energy somewhere else for your own good, the good of your family, or the good of humanity? Yes or no? I like to watch documentaries and shows that kind of portray past cultures or societies. I watched all those Viking shows that were out. I just finished watching the one on Netflix, Black Sails, about pirates. Stuff like that. I don't watch horror movies anymore. Rarely, very rare will I rarely will I watch a military video. I know guys that watch military stuff all day long, and then they go outside into public and they treat people like they're the enemy because their senses are on overload from having been projected to this vision, the television, these shows, that stimulate your five senses and also cause you to have relapses in your memory of events that are related to what you're watching now, even though those events happened 20, 30 years ago. You're bringing them back to life. You're resurrecting them. And it's not just military shows that do that. Let me tell you what I learned in neuroscience. When you have a negative event right now, let's say you're in the store and you're pushing your cart, you know, you're next in line to go put your groceries up there, and the lady or the old guy bumps you in the back, you know, bumps you with their cart. Maybe it doesn't bother you. Maybe you flip out. You want to know why most people flip out? Most people, not all. When that occurs, when you're bumped in the back, when that occurs, every experience you ever had just like that, your whole life, when you're bumped again, like right now, every experience you ever had in your whole life where you were in an aisle and were bumped by a cart, the subconscious pulls that file out and starts to play it in your mind. You don't realize it's going on. But it's happening. And some people are so not their authentic selves that they become consumed by it and overreact. Like, turn around and tell an old lady, like, what the hell? The subconscious. Now that you know that, you can't unknow it. Now that you know that, you can't unknow it. Every time you have an unpleasant experience, stop at a stop sign, a car pulls out as you're pulling out, and they pull in front of you. Every time that happens now, your subconscious pulls a file of the previous experiences you had related to this one, and it starts playing in the back of your mind. That's why some people can handle that shit and some people can't. Because people that are balanced are over it already. They are aware this could happen at any point in time during the day, and it doesn't bother them. I learned that from the Stoics. When I wake up, I could tell myself at any point today I'm going to be hurt, frustrated, disappointed, or annoyed. It's going to happen. It doesn't mean somebody's out to get me. It doesn't mean somebody wants to cause me harm. In most cases, it's not done on purpose. Right? So when it happens, I could say, yeah, well, you know. But this life isn't for weaklings. This life is not for weaklings. When I say weaklings, I mean people that have no control over themselves. They have no control over what they say. They have no control over how they behave. They're just selfish, self-centered people who are going to do what they want. They don't know any better. How do you get them to learn a new way of life? I don't know. Maybe just like hitting bottom with drugs and alcohol, maybe they'll act inappropriately and it'll cause them a lot of grief for what they did. And they might say, okay, then, oh, I hit a bottom emotionally. Now I better change. That may happen. Nobody likes a know-it-all. Nobody likes a smart-ass. Nobody likes an immature adult. And I'm talking about somebody over 20 years old. Men. Men who act like middle school schoolgirls. Men, into drama. Nonsense. Blaming other people. Not taking responsibility for themselves. Making excuses for their behavior. Making excuses when they behave inappropriately. Yeah, it's a free country. Yeah, there's free speech. Guess what? There was a time back in the day, if your free speech was obnoxious, you got a knuckle sandwich. But you can't do that today. You'll get arrested and sued. Lastly, as you embark on this journey where you have a psychic change, a profound personality change, right? You don't have to do it for other people. Just do it for yourself and watch the fruits of your labor. Watch the fruits of your labor. You will know good people by their actions, how they present themselves, their words. If you can't help someone, at least don't hurt them. And if you can help them and you want to hurt them, don't do that. Just move on. Just move on. Nobody likes you if that's your gig, hurting people. Nobody likes you. People are afraid of you. They don't respect you. They're afraid of you. Make it an amazing day. Make it. It's your choice. It's your decision what kind of day you're going to have. So, why not make it an amazing day? And not just life. Make it an amazing life. It's your choice. It's your decision what kind of life you're going to have. So why not make it a good one? You do this for yourself, not anybody else. And as you get the gifts of discernment and the gifts of intuition, you start to find your place in life. You may go it alone for a while, but alone doesn't mean you're lonely. Listen, there are a lot of spiritually sick people today that are addicted, to more things than ever before. Not just drugs and alcohol. Like I said, video games, pornography. They're addicted to a false sense of pride about themselves. They're addicted to a false sense of who they think they are. They're addicted to this idea that this is what they must do with other people. That is, control them, teach them a lesson, those things. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.